So in this lesson, we're creating a modal. So whenever you click the button, the modal will show up. Whenever you click the close or on anywhere outside of the modal, any other elements, it will close up the modal. So we've got some styling and some JavaScript to make this happen. This lesson, we're going to be creating a modal. So we're going to need some HTML onto the page. And in order to handle the modal, then you're going to need a button that's going to actually open it, and then the modal code itself. So I'm just adding that into the page. And right now that's not going to really do anything. We're not hiding the modal. It's still available on the page. But this is the basic setup that we have and that we can use for it. I'm going to get rid of some of the other content that we have on there. So there's our modal. So what we want to do is we want to hide this modal, and we want it to open with JavaScript whenever we click the button. So going into our styling, and let's first select the modal class. And I'm going to go through the CSS fairly quickly. So we're going to use a display property of none, so that should hide it from the page. We're going to give it a position, and we can do a fixed position of that. And for now, I'm actually going to get rid of the none so that we can see that as the modal is being built out. And usually I like to be able to view it as I'm creating it. So that way you can adjust any of the styling as needed. Let's add in some padding at the top. So the top, we can do maybe 100 pixels of padding at the top. So we've got a Z index of 1. Let's set it to the left of 0 and top of 0. So we'll position it there. And then we want to hide any of the overflow, or we want to do an auto of the overflow. So let's set that as overflow auto. And then we're going to set some background colors. So the background color, and we're going to use RGB so that way we can have a transparent. So RGB, and 000 is going to be the main modal RGB. And then we'll do the background color, and we're going to do it a little bit transparent. So RGB, and we're going to use the alpha for the transparency, and that we can set as 0.04. So there's our modal that's going to pop up, and it's initially going to pop up. And let's also, then we can set some of the modal content as well. So let's set the styling for that. So modal, we'll call it modal dash content, and do a background color, and then this can just be a light grayish color if we want. So modal background color for the content. Let's set the margin, and we'll do an auto margin, so that should center it. Add in some padding, so let's do about 20 pixels of padding. Do a border 1 pic solid, and then let's do a color for the border, so a gray scale color. And then we're going to set the width to about 80%. So that will add the content there, and we can see that this is the content now that we're able to view. Let's update the close button. So selecting the class for the close. So this is a button that's going to actually close the modal. And then of course we want to float it. So we want to float it to the right for offset for the content. And let's adjust the font size, and we'll do 28 pixels for the font size, and then a font weight of bold, or font weight, and set that to bold. So there's our closing button. And let's also add some hover effects to the close. So as we hover over the close button, and do it using the hover, and then also close, and we also want to do it when it focus on the element. We're going to change the color, and let's set that to be black so it gets darker. Text decoration, we're going to set to none, and then the cursor, let's update that to be the pointer. So when we hover over it, it highlights slightly there. So that basically gives us our basic modal that we can use, and that's can be adjusted as needed. So what we want to do now, let's go ahead and we're going to hide the modal. So using the display property, and add that in as none. So that way we don't see the modal, And when we click it, that's when we want the modal to actually pop up. And then this is obviously going to be done with JavaScript. So now let's go into the JavaScript code, and we're going to use a document. We're going to add an event listener. The event listener is going to be when the DOM content has loaded, and we're going to run the function. So whenever the DOM content is loaded, this is the function that we're going to run. So this makes sure that you've got all of your HTML is loaded before you try to access and use it. So we're going to set a variable const modal and use the document. We're going to get the element by ID. So document and then get element by ID. And then we have the one element that has the ID of my modal. And that's within the HTML. So that allows us to select that page element. We've also got the open button. So that's the one that we've got on the page where it says the open modal. And so this is going to be a document. And we're going to get element by ID for this one as well, because this one has an ID. So getting it by ID, and this is the open modal element with the ID of open modal. So you can go back and we can see that we're selecting the my modal, and then this is the open modal elements. And that allows us to access them with JavaScript. Another one is going to be the close button. So this is the one that's going to allow us to close the modal. So using the document, we can get element by class name. And the element that we're going to get is going to be the close element. And this, because class name returns back all of the elements that have the class of close, so we're just going to select whatever the first one is. So selecting the open button element, add the on click function to it, and whenever it gets clicked, then this is the action that we want to do. So whenever it's clicked, we're going to do the modal and style, display style, and set that to be block. So it's going to allow it to be visible. So save that, and now when we click it, it's going to show our modal. And then we've also got the close button. So we want an on click on the close button. And whenever that gets clicked, we run the function. And what this is going to do is this is going to take the modal, style, display, and then we're going to set it to none. So that will hide the modal. So let's try it out. So open the modal and hide the modal, open the modal and hide the modal. Great. And we also want to have a window event. So window on click. So anywhere we're clicking on the window itself. And this is going to be capturing the event object. And so if it's being clicked on, so if the event target is going to be equal to modal, equals modal, and then we're going to do a display of modal, style, and do a display of none. And let's also in the console take the event target so that we can see what's actually being clicked. So this is the main body that's being clicked, and that's the modal that's being clicked. So open modal, and then we click off the modal into the content, and that will also close the modal. So we can close the modal in a few different ways. So that's how you can create a basic modal using JavaScript, HTML, and some CSS.